I believe that the freedom of speech is a universal international right, that all opinions shall be tolerated, regardless if agreeable or disagreeable. I believe in the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, the freedom of expression, the freedom of religion, not from it, the freedom of the press, the right of the people to peaceably assemble, be it physically or spiritually or digitally or virtually. I believe in the separation of church and state and corporation. I believe that truth is non-binary and can be objective, subjective, normative, or complex. There are no eternal facts as there are no absolute truths except the word of God. For us creators and for our content, great thinkers have philosophized. And our founding fathers debated the dangers of cancellation and censorship for centuries. And no individual shall be indemnified of criticism or mockery, for there is honesty in jest. I pledge that the ideas I share are my own and are not the expressed opinions of any violent criminal organizations. The only group I represent is the human race, and I reserve the right to interview any of my counterparts without fear, threat, or intimidation, with their opinions being their own, with my opinions being my own, for association does not always equal shared beliefs. I pledge to perform in a professional, dignified manner and not bully, harass, or slander my fellow human creatures, to refrain from hate, anger, sedition, vulgarity, harassment, pornography, cautioning that satire and sarcasm can at times be misinterpreted as such. I believe in the counter-speech doctrine, that the remedy to negative, harmful speech is more positive, helpful speech, not enforced silence, that no person shall be denied access to social media, which is the marketplace of ideas in today's town square, that Section 230 privatizes communism, legalizes libel and stalking, and that content creators who have broken community guidelines in the past deserve retribution because we are all constituents of the human party and humans are fallible. Amen.
Outstanding. Pow!
All right. Settle in, guys. Here we go.
1, 2, 3.
Welcome back, dear listeners, to a divine revival. After a heavenly hiatus, we're back with a righteous vengeance, ready to ignite your souls with the blazing truth. Brace yourselves for an epic quest as we unveil the secret of true Christianity. The proof is in the gooding. Our inspired Bible readings, 2 Corinthians, Gospel of Matthew, challenge us to embody faith amidst adversity and temptation. Join us as we conquer these trials with an unwavering commitment to goodness. In the company of the esteemed Saint Romuald, we'll dive into the Latin word of the day, Probationem. Let its essence remind us that faith thrives in the crucible of proof. But wait, there's more. Let's toast to our belated show birthday 1 year strong and get ready for a mind-bending exploration of Pascal's Week, faith and reason collide. To top it all off, we bring you a captivating debate with the formidable atheist Sir Luke, straight from the depths of the Twitter spaces. Sparks will fly, minds will expand. Fasten your seatbelts, dear faithful, for a wild ride of enlightenment and amusement awaits. The proof is in the gooding, my friends, and together we shall rise. Welcome back to the Divine Fold. By the way, there's the disclaimer. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests and do not guarantee divine infallibility. Hey, we're pretty darn close.
FATENZO.com.
Good day, do followers. This is your based Catholic liturgy program. It's the Holy Ghost's daily dose of digital divinity. And if you don't know, now you know the FATENZO show is Latin for podcast. Today we'll cover the good news from the book and the bad news of the world. And now, your host, a former altar boy who couldn't get molested in the basement of a rectory, Robert Vincent Piccirillo.
Oh yeah, hey, how you guys doing today? Good morning. I haven't been around for a long time. I haven't been around for like a month and a half. We haven't been around, me and the buddy boy there. He's just chilling. And actually, let me cue up my my shotgun rider. Hopefully I could say this, that Jesus Christ always is riding shotgun along with Buddy to my side. Hopefully. I hope so. I hope that's genuine. But anyway, I haven't been around for a long time, maybe a month and a half. So Had a lot going on in my life. Did a lot of work. Ended a relationship. And now I'm just, I don't know. I'm in a different mode. I've been to confession, and I went to an SSPX, and I went to confession, and I confessed a lot of things that I've been doing for the last couple of years. I think that was kind of the wrong path, and did the priest scold me? And I think I took my penance seriously. Oh, I could do the entire Hail Mary in Spanish. Watch this. Dios te salve María, llena eres de gracia, el Señor es contigo, bendita eres entre todas las mujeres, bendito es el fruto de tu vientre Jesús. Santa María, Madre de Dios, ruega Señora por nosotros los pecadores, ahora y en la hora de nuestra muerte. Amen. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. But I got that going for me, so I'm learning some Spanish. That's awesome. I'm gonna learn a lot more Latin prayers now that I've been going to the SSPX close by. I really enjoy that whole the Society of Saint Paul Pius X. It's great. But in order for this show, we go we're Bordo with the Novus Ordo when it goes to this show. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but this is episode 229. Happy belated birthday to us. This FATENZO show, Latin for podcast. I started doing this last year in 2022. The actual date was May 25th, 2022, and we missed that date because I've been on a hiatus. But happy birthday to the show. We've been doing it for a year. So already got canceled. Already onto our multiple accounts on various platforms for no particular reason whatsoever. Just having conversations and stuff. That's all. But anyway, so many things have happened. Yeah, right. Like what? Like Tucker Carlson. He's gone from Fox. They fired him because he was getting too based. He was way too based. I mean, look at this.
Enzo.com.
Have you seen Building 7 collapse, the Solomon Brothers building?
No.
I want to show you that right now.
Now, here we're going to show you a videotape of the collapse itself.
Describe that.
Now we go to videotape, the collapse of this building.
It's amazing.
Amazing, incredible, pick your word. For the third time today, it's reminiscent of those pictures we've all seen too much on television before when a building was deliberately destroyed by well-placed dynamite to knock it down.
Moments ago, I was talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing, and indeed it has. We'll probably find out more now about that from our correspondent, Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
Well, only really what you already know. Details.
Was this after the collapse of the other two?
Yes, and she's saying it's fallen, Building 7.
Familiar New York skyline, a symbol by the mayor, Rudy Giuliani, much earlier today because of, the dreadful collapse of the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. But New York, very much a city still in chaos. The phones are not working properly.
They announced Building 7 fell 25 minutes before it did, and then lied and said this wasn't real, and then later admitted it. And then we have the up-close footage of CNN. Police saying, get back, they're going to bring it down.
Keep your eye on that building as we coming down. Building is about to blow up. Moving back here. All right, guys? We are looking back. There's a building about to blow up.
It was almost as if it were a planned implosion. It just pancaked.
Well, pancaking almost like a precision implosion.
It's reminiscent of those pictures we've all seen too much on television before when a building was deliberately destroyed by well-placed dynamite to knock it down.
I I don't want to put you on the spot here and have the black helicopters come after you, Tucker Carlson. But what do you think of that?
You know, I'm not a structural engineer. I think it's upsetting to watch it. I remember when that happened. I mean, look, I have no idea. I don't know anything. I mean, I don't understand how buildings collapse. I don't understand how Building 7 collapsed.
What actually happened with Building 7? Like, that is weird, right? It doesn't, like, what is that?
Right.
If you were to say something like that on television, they'd flip out. They would flip out. So you'd, like, lose your job over that. Why? It's my country.
Right.
Is it an attack on my country? Can I ask it? Like, I don't really understand. Do buildings actually collapse? No, maybe they do. I don't know. But, like, why can't I ask questions about that? Anything you're not allowed to ask questions about is something you should be asking more questions about. As far as I'm concerned.
Outstanding. Pow!
Yeah, so Tucker, he got red-pilled by Alex Jones. That's what happened. He got too based. And what based means, by the way, people don't really even realize what based means. Based means based in reality. So he's not sugarcoating things. He's based in reality. What else happened while we were on hiatus? There was a big Dodgers protest. Catholic Dodgers protest. Yes, LA, a couple days ago on Friday, actually on the Feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. What was quite fitting, they had this drag show planned for Pride Month and the Dodgers, the LA Dodgers, and there was a performance group called the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, and they basically mock Catholic nuns. They dress up like nuns, and so it's a demonic, stupid thing to have at a baseball game, which is family friendly. It's crazy. So, but that happened, and then if my buddy Eddie Block, if you go check out Eddie Block Films, if you follow him on Twitter, he did an entire live stream of the whole thing. A Trump supporter, Jack Pasabic was there, and he prayed the Our Father in Latin in front of an entire crowd. That was so that went on. That was only a couple days ago. RFK Jr. was on Rogan, which was really, really interesting. Now, what I find crazy is that RFK Jr. is a Democrat and liberals' heads are exploding. I would say he's more of a conservative Democrat. I think Trump is a liberal Republican and RFK Jr. is a conservative Democrat. So you're in the middle. You're in the middle range. He just decided to choose Democrat for his name, but back in the day during his uncle's reign and his dad's reign, back in the 60s, that's what a traditional liberal looked like. And so a lot of today's liberals, their heads are exploding with seeing this guy. He goes on Joe Rogan and they do a 3-hour discussion, uninterrupted. He has a lot of, RFK has a lot of opinions that go against the mainstream. You find people like Gavin McInnes saying he supports RFK. I wonder if some of the Proud Boys will start supporting RFK Jr. It's crazy. It's you imagine a bunch of Proud Boys showing up at an RFK Jr. rally. That would be insane. Anyway, liberals' heads would explode. You imagine if Trump if Trump wasn't if we were absolutely positive 100% that Trump is not controlled opposition, him with Kennedy as the VP, that would be a winning ticket, 100%. That would be a winning ticket. Today's Juneteenth. I have no idea what that is at all. Not even going to look it up. Father's Day was yesterday. Did you wish your priest a happy Father's Day? You should. You know what? I'm going to do that today because I forgot. Well, I didn't forget to. I just wasn't in the, went out the back door yesterday. That's right. But today I think I'm gonna do that. I got today's show lined up right now. Basically, we're going to play a Twitter Spaces debate that happened about a month and a half ago. All right, it was like right after, I think, a couple days after my last show. I did this Twitter Spaces debate with a guy named Sir Ludwig, who's basically he calls himself a national socialist. But I'm not sure that he's very anti-Semitic, and he calls himself an national socialist. So I don't know. I debated him. He's also an atheist. So I'm going to cue that up and go to church here relatively soon. But until I'm ready to leave, let me go through some of the stuff. Through some of like the saint of the day, for instance. And do the readings of the day. Yeah, I think maybe should I do the readings right now? Maybe I should do the readings right now. Hold on. Where is it? Here we go. Okay. A reading from the second letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians. As God's fellow workers, we beg you once again not to neglect the grace of God that you have received. For he says, at the favorable time, I have listened to you. On the day of salvation, I came to your help. Well, now is the favorable time. This is the day of salvation. We do nothing that people might object to, so as not to bring discredit on our function as God's servants. Instead, we prove we are servants of God by great fortitude in times of suffering, in times of hardship and distress, when we are flogged or sent to prison or mobbed, laboring, sleepless, starving. We prove we are God's servants by our purity, knowledge, patience, and kindness, by a spirit of holiness, by a love free from affection, by the word of truth, and by the power of God, by being armed with the weapons of righteousness in the right hand and in the left, prepared for honor or disgrace, for blame or praise, taken for impostors while we are genuine, obscure yet famous, said to be dying, and here are we alive, rumored to be executed before we are sentenced, thought most miserable, and yet we are always rejoicing, taken for paupers, though we make others rich, for people having nothing, though we have everything. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Now Psalm 97. The Lord has made known his salvation. The Lord has made known his salvation. Sing a new song to the Lord, for he has worked wonders. His right hand and his holy arm have brought salvation. The Lord has made known his salvation. The Lord has made known his salvation, has shown his justice to the nations. He has remembered his truth and love for the house of Israel. The Lord has made known his salvation. All the ends of the earth have seen the salvation of our God. Shout to the Lord, all the earth. Ring out your joy. The Lord has made known his salvation. Alleluia. 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 If anyone loves me, he will keep my word, and my Father will love him. We shall come to him. Alleluia. 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 All right. Now, a reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Gloria tibi Domine. Jesus said, you have learned how it was said, eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. But I say this to you, offer the wicked man no resistance. On the contrary, if anyone hits you on the right cheek, offer him the other as well. If a man takes you to law and would have your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. And if anyone orders you to go 1 mile, go 2 miles with him. Give to anyone who asks. And if anyone wants to borrow, do not turn away. The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. All right, that was inspiring. So that's you basically you have to show that that you're a Christian. When it comes to when it really you're in the thick of it, when the adversity happens, when you're in the war, when they're going after your person, your character, when they're trying to tear you down, in this world, you have to just be good. And the proof is in the gooding. The proof isn't in the pudding. Proof is in the gooding. Not in the Jello pudding. Not in the Jello pudding. And by the way, the proof is in the pudding is an expression that means the value, quality, or truth of something must be judged based on direct experience with it or on its results. The expression is an alteration of an older saying that makes the meaning a bit clearer. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. And so that's hence the name of the show today. The proof is in the gooding. You got to be good. You got to be a good person, okay? And if you fight through the temptation and you do what you need to do, then you are a good Christian, and you're actually proving that you're a good Christian. You can't just say it and not do it. You have to have action. You have to. You can't just be sinning and stuff like that, and not trying to be better, not confessing it like I was talking about, going to confession earlier. That's what you have to do, and you have to stick to it, and you have to be genuine. And then God does change your life. It's pretty amazing. The saint of the day is Saint Romuald. Saint Romuald. Saint of the day for June 19th from Franciscan Media. In the midst of a wasted youth, Romuald watched his father kill a relative in a duel over property. In horror, he fled to a monastery near Ravenna. After 3 years, some of the monks found him to be uncomfortably holy and eased him out. Romuald spent the next 30 years going about Italy, founding monasteries and hermitages. He longed to give his life to Christ in martyrdom and got the Pope's permission to preach the gospel in Hungary. But he was struck with illness as soon as he arrived, and the illness recurred as often as he tried to proceed. During another period of his life, Romuald suffered great spiritual dryness. One day, as he was praying Psalm 31, I will give you understanding and I will instruct you. He was given an extraordinary light and spirit which never left him. Good for him. At the next monastery where he stayed, Romuald was accused of scandalous crime by a young nobleman he had rebuked for a dissolute life. Amazingly, his fellow monks believed the accusation. He was given a severe penance, forbidden from offering Mass, and excommunicated, an unjust sentence that he endured in silence for 6 months. The most famous of the monasteries Romuald founded was that of the Camaldoli in Tuscany. Here began the order of the Camaldolesi Benedictines, uniting the monastic and eremitical lives. In later life, Romuald's own father became a monk, wavering, and was kept faithful by the encouragement of his son. And just the reflection of the day of his life. Christ is a gentle leader, but he calls us to total holiness. Now and then, men and women are raised up to challenge us by the absoluteness of their dedication, the vigor of their spirit, the depth of their conversion. The fact that we cannot duplicate their lives does not change the call to us to be totally open to God in our own particular circumstances. Nice. All right. Man, I wonder if I got some Hagiograph faith on on Facebook. I did not prepare that today, but let me look that up. Let me see if they got anything, because I do love their updates. Hagiograph Faith. Everybody knows. Let me put that up on the screen. Let me put that up on the screen. Where is it? Didn't have any that prepared right now. Where is it? Hagiograph Faith. Yeah. Boom. These guys over here on Facebook. See that? Follow them. Check them out. They make these saint cards. They're from the Philippines. These people, and very, very Catholic people in the Philippines. But they have thousands of people following them on Facebook, and it's pretty awesome. Where is it? Now I have to take some of these cards and put them here. Okay. But a lot of stuff has happened, right? Ever since we last spoke. A lot of stuff. It's amazing. Oh, there wasn't even that much stuff for today. Here we go. All right. So here's some venerable mentions for June 19th from Hagiograph Faith. The two Beta Osana. It is quite confusing because they're both named Osana, both Beatty. I mean, that's one. That's if you don't know, that's one step towards becoming a saint. I think that's the first step. Both Dominican tertiaries and both mystics since childhood. But they are two different persons. Osana and Dreasi left, whose memorial we celebrate today, was Italian, who had the stigmata and whose visions mainly involved the Passion of Jesus. Osana Kotorska, who's to the right, has the memorial April 27th. It was Montenegrin, who also had visions, and most stories do not report her having the stigmata. All right. Here's one. There's only 3 of them. Nurse and missionary Venerable Jean Monce. Today is the death anniversary of Venerable Jean Monce, a French layperson who was a nurse by profession. She went with the missionaries to the Americas and settled in what is now Montreal in Canada. She established its first hospital. She was known for her dedication to both the mission of evangelization and taking care of the sick. All right, another venerable mention. And the last but not least is Venerable Margarita Crispy, help of kids, elderly, and war victims. Today is her death anniversary. She was an Italian founder of the Sisters Oblates of Divine Love. Her original name was Diomira Ludovica Romana Crispi. Her goal for the congregation was for it to become an institute dedicated to orphan girls, the education of children, and the assistance of the elderly. She helped the displaced during the war, the disbanded people, and the soldiers fleeing during the war. All right. So that's what you got for Hagiograph Faith. So it's 8:10. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play this. Or should I do the Latin? Let me do the Latin word of the day first. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Hold on 1 second. Oh boy. Tomorrow, if I do a show tomorrow, I'm going to be so much more on point because I haven't done one of these in so long. Always takes you a second to get back to where you needed to go. Back to where you were before. It's kind of like stand-up comedy, I guess, probably, or whatever. Or anytime you do a lot of talking, you gotta warm up.
FATENZO.com.
It's time for the Latin word of the day.
Woo! All right, Latin word of the day time is, what is the, as we mentioned it before, it was probationem. 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 What did we talk about? Just what are we talking about today, huh? We're talking about the proof is in the gooding, right? You got to be a good person if you're a Christian and show the people. You got to be a display. You got to be a walking display for Christ. You can't just be calling yourself a Christian and then going around and being a total scum, because that's disingenuous, right? And then people are going to think, Christians, they're no good. They just say that. They just say they're Christian. They go to church or whatever, but then they sleep around. They cheat. They steal. They're jerks to their wives, or their husbands. Disagreeable. Yell at their kids. Disrespectful to their parents. All the things that you could do. The 10 Commandments and the 2 Commandments from the Gospel. Love thy neighbor. If you're not loving thy neighbor like yourself, you're not showing the proof. You're not showing the proof and the evidence. You're not showing it. Probationem is Latin for proof or evidence. Probationem, which is interesting because it is the root. The root is probare, right? And you get the word probation from that same Latin verb, probare, to prove, to test. Probationem. Probation, isn't that crazy? Like probation, what do you have to do? You got to continue to prove to your probation officer that you're being good. Think about Jesus is your probation officer. Jesus is, maybe this is jail. Maybe this is a prison sentence. Because we're the AI of God, and this maybe is a prison sentence. Who knows? We're put here on this earth for a time and a test. He's testing us. Maybe we're on probation. Once we get off probation, we get into heaven. So we got to keep on being good. Why were we created to be, why did we become so bad? I don't know. Why is it the human being's natural inclination just to be bad? I don't know. But we are. And you have to be aware of that. And you got to try to strive to be better. I don't think we were put on this earth to just be worldly scums. I really don't. And you know what? Have you ever seen this Pascal's Wager? One of my friends, Ed Lynch, should have him on the show. Said he's quote unquote a biblical scholar. He actually taught me a lot. He was talking about Pascal's Wager from the book of Wikipedia. I have this up. Pascal's Wager is a philosophical argument presented by the 17th century French mathematician, philosopher, physicist, and theologian Blaise Pascal, 1623 to 1662. It posits that human beings wager with their lives that God either exists or does not. Pascal argues that a rational person should live as though God exists and seek to believe in God. If God does not exist, such a person will have only a finite loss, some pleasures, luxuries, etc. Whereas if God does exist, they stand to receive infinite gains, as represented by eternity in heaven, and avoid infinite losses and eternity in hell. The original wager was set out in Pascal's posthumously published Pensees, which means thoughts, an assembly of previously unpublished notes. Pascal's Wager marked the first formal use of decision theory, existentialism, pragmatism, and voluntarism. The wager is commonly criticized with counter-arguments, such as the failure to prove, probationem, provare. The wager is commonly criticized with counter-arguments, such as the failure to prove the existence of God, the argument from inconsistent revelations, and the argument from inauthentic belief. Now, the wager uses the following logic. Continuing on with this book of Wiki. Why not, right? This is interesting. I find it. God is or God is not. Reason cannot decide between the two alternatives. A game is being played where heads or tails will turn up. You must wager. It is not optional. Let us weigh the gain and the loss in wagering that God is. Let us estimate these two chances. If you gain all. If you lose nothing. Wager then without hesitation that he is. There is here an infinity of an infinitely happy life to gain, a chance of gain against a finite number of chances of loss, and what you stake is finite. And so our proposition is of infinite force when there is the finite to stake in the game, where there are equal risks of gain and of loss, and the infinite to gain. But some cannot believe. They should then at least learn your inability to believe and endeavor then to convince themselves. Pascal asks the reader to analyze humankind's position, where our actions can be enormously consequential, but our understanding of those consequences is flawed. While we can discern a great deal through reason, we are ultimately forced to gamble. Pascal cites a number of distinct areas of uncertainty in human life. I believe this is true. It is a gamble. Because some people, it's like serial killers and stuff, I think gamble on the fact that there is no God. And then it just keeps going on here. Pascal describes humanity as a finite being trapped within an incomprehensible infinity, briefly thrust into being from non-being, with no explanation of why, what, or how. Yeah, it's true. On Pascal's view, human finitude constrains our ability to achieve truth reliably, given that reason alone cannot determine whether God exists. Pascal concludes that this question functions as a coin toss. However, even if we do not know the outcome of this coin toss, we must base our actions on some expectation about the consequence. We must decide whether to live or as through God exists, or whether we live as though God does not exist, even though we may be mistaken in either case. In Pascal's assessment, participation in this wager is not optional. Merely by existing in a state of uncertainty, we are forced to choose between the available courses of action for practical purpose. That's true. That's true, because if you decide not to do anything, you're still doing something. You're still choosing. Pascal's description of the wager. If there is a God, he is infinitely incomprehensible, since having neither parts nor limits, he has no affinity to us. We are then incapable of knowing either what he is or if he is. God is or he is not. But to which side shall we incline? Reason can decide nothing here. There is infinite chaos that separated us. A game is being played at the extremity of this infinite distance, where heads or tails will turn up. What will you wager? According to reason, you can do neither the one thing nor the other. According to reason, you can defend neither of the purposes of the propositions. Do not then remove for error those who have made a choice, for you know nothing about it. No, but I blame them for having made not this choice, but a choice. For again, both he who chooses heads and he who chooses tails are equally at fault. They're both in the wrong. The true course is not a wager at all. Okay. Yes, but you must wager. It's not optional. You are embarked. Which will you choose then? Let us see. Since you must choose, let us see which interests you least. You have two things to lose, the true and the good. There's that word, the good. And two things at stake, your reason and your will. your knowledge and your happiness, and your nature has two things to shun, error and misery. Your reason is no more shocked in choosing one rather than the other, since you must of necessity choose. This is one point settled, but your happiness? Let us weigh the gain and the loss in wagering that God is. Let us estimate these two chances. If you gain all. If you lose nothing. Wager then without hesitation that he is. That is very fine. Yes, I must wager, but I may perhaps wager too much. Let us see. Since there is an equal risk of gain and loss, if you had only to gain 2 lives instead of 1, you might still wager. But if there were 3 lives to gain, you would have to play, since you are under the necessity of playing, and you would be imprudent when you are forced to play, not to change your life to gain 3 at a game where there is an equal risk of loss and gain. But there is an eternity of life and happiness, and this being so, if there were an infinity of chances, of which one only would be for you, you would still be right in wagering 1 to win 2. And you would act stupidly being obliged to play by refusing to stake 1 life against 3 at a game in which out of an infinity of chances there is 1 for you, if there were an infinity of an infinitely happy life to gain. But there is here an infinity of an infinitely happy life to gain, a chance of gain against a finite number of chances of losses. And what you stake is finite. I feel like that Sicilian guy from Princess Bride. Like that the logic is just churning. This logic is just turning and turning and turning and turning, right? I mean, I'm not really a betting person. I mean, I bet on myself. I bet on myself in life. I don't really like go gamble or anything. I'm not like a gambler. But I guess if you're going to gamble on this, choose God is probably the smartest idea. Pascal begins by painting a situation where both the existence and non-existence of God are impossible to prove by human reason. That's true. I always say that, by the way. I say never logic up your faith. What do I always say? Don't German up your faith. You know? Like the Protestant Luther, Mr. Luther, who, by the way, when his parents were dying, told them not to convert and just stay Catholic, because it's better to live as a Protestant but better to die as a Catholic, he said. So supposing that reason cannot determine the truth between the two options, one must wager by weighing the possible consequences. Pascal's assumption is that when it comes to making a decision, no one can refuse to participate. Holding assent is impossible because we are already embarked, effectively living out the choice. You know what? I'm going to get back to Pascal's wagers. I'm going to go to church right now because I'm betting on the fact that there is a God. I'll get back to Pascal's wager in the book of Wiki in a second, but right now I'm going to play this. I'm going to play this interview that I conducted about a month and a week ago or so with Sir Ludwig. You can find him on search for him. Look for this emoji, whatever avatar that you see on the side of the screen. Look for him and find the right guy. He hosts all these crazy spaces, and he's very interesting. He's insane. He's total scum. We have our major disagreement. But anyway, you know, he's still like an intellectual, and I wanted to talk to him about my affinity for Catholicism. I appreciate Catholicism, and I've taken that wager, I guess, and I'm wagering that there is a God. So I know this is clunky, but I'm going to get rid of Jesus here. Buddy Boy's just chilling. I'm also going to get rid of this background here for a second, and then I'm going to play it, and I will see you guys later. I'll be back.
FATENZO.com. Good morning, and I mean, you know, I look at these things as discussions more than debates, but either or, I'm fine with the way it's set up.
Thank you, sir. And yes, I agree. And I love these spaces. I think that this is a really cool part of technology where you could have basically a conference call with all kinds of different people throughout the world. And I was telling these guys, before you jumped on, I was just saying that, Sir Ludwig is an intellectual, he's a very intelligent person. In my opinion, he has a unique perspective on the world. And if you could we start by could you just go and for the next couple minutes, tell us about your philosophy? Because we really are kind of talking about competing philosophies. And I think that in any healthy debate, quote unquote, whatever, discussion, it's good to know what your opponent or, your participator in the conversation, what their world outlook is. Can you sum up your world outlook before we start?
Sure. First and foremost, I need to apologize for being late. I'm never late for anything. So I do apologize. My dad had called. He's elderly. He's going into surgery this week. So I spent a little time talking with him. So I apologize for that. I meant no disrespect towards you. As far as me, I have to label myself an atheist, but I really don't like that term. Somebody's got their mic open. It's distracting.
It's probably mine. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm printing at the same time. Let me turn it off.
So, I hate to identify as an atheist, but for lack of better term, I pretty much have to. So I don't believe in this God concept. I'm more of universal truths and nature's law. Most atheists I find aren't really atheists. They're usually just anti. Like in the West, most that are identified as atheists, they're just anti-Christian. They've spent no time investigating other belief systems. It's one thing to say, Christianity's not, you have no faith in Christianity, but a lot more than not, these people, they don't research none of the other faiths. So they really don't know if maybe Buddhism's, onto something, or Hinduism for that matter. They don't research these things, and so they don't even know. So, for atheists to do this blanket, I'm against all these religions, more times than not, I don't find that to be true. Just like in Arab lands, an Arab atheist, he will be more anti-Islam than anything. Because there again, he probably, and more times than not, did not research Buddhism or Hinduism or one of the many other belief systems. So I hate to identify as atheist, but once again, for lack of better term, I guess that's the easiest way to let people know I'm not a follower of this God concept. Now, as far as my political beliefs, I'm a National Socialist. When I research government and governance and governing, me personally, I feel National Socialism is more in line with my nature's law and universal truth philosophy. And when I look at, nothing's perfect. National Socialism is not perfection. But when I look at it and look at what it has to offer and how it's structured and what it promotes and provides, I'm in line with that. So I don't know much else to share. I'm just an average person, nothing special. Self-taught in many respects, never formally trained, or some people say indoctrinated in universities. Went to university for about 2 years, never finished. Never completed. It was more out of boredom that I went. I went later in life. It was more out of boredom, and I was just, I took a bunch of different, I took psychology. I wasn't planning on being a psychologist, but I've always been fascinated with the human mind and human condition. So it was more just pursuing knowledge and enlightenment. And that's been my motto in life, the pursuit of knowledge and enlightenment. I don't worry about being right. I want to be informed. So then I don't know much else I could share. That's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Thank you, Sir Ludwig. I really appreciate you very much for sharing that. Thank you. I would like to share a little bit about myself and my position on things as well. I actually have a creed. If you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and just say that. I believe that the freedom of speech. I believe that the freedom of speech is a universal international right. That all opinions shall be tolerated regardless if agreeable or disagreeable. I believe in the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, the freedom of expression, the freedom of religion, not from it, the freedom of the press, the right of the people to peaceably assemble, be it physically or spiritually or digitally or virtually. I believe in the separation of church and state and corporation. I believe that truth is non-binary and can be objective, subjective, normative, or complex, for there is honesty in jest. I pledge that the ideas I share are my own and are not the expressed opinions of any violent criminal organizations. The only group I represent is the human race, and I reserve the right to interview any of my counterparts or debate any of my counterparts without fear, threat, or intimidation, with their opinions being their own and my opinions being my own. For association is not always equal shared beliefs. I pledge to perform in a professional, dignified manner and not bully, harass, or slander my fellow human creatures, to refrain from hate, anger, sedition, vulgarity, harassment, pornography, cautioning that satire and sarcasm can at times be misinterpreted as such. I believe in the counter-speech doctrine, that the remedy to negative, harmful speech is more positive, helpful speech, not enforced silence, that no person shall be denied access to social media, which is the marketplace of ideas in today's town square, that Section 230 privatizes communism, legalizes libel and stalking, and that content creators who have broken community guidelines in the past deserve retribution because we're all constituents of the human party and humans are fallible. Amen. And so I think I took up my time pretty much right there, basically explaining where I'm coming from. I believe in the separation of church and state and corporation. I believe that this country was founded on the freedom of religion, not from it. And I think that a lot of people, like this humanistic person, this person who believes in humanism, I guess, more of human nature, I guess, like natural law, I believe. I just want to find out why people can have these spaces, share these spaces, and talk about every topic under the sun. But when you start talking about religion, doesn't matter what flavor, they get triggered, just like the people that they always rally against that are known for being triggered easily, like liberals, not to call out one particular political persuasion, but they've been known to do that over the last 4 years or so. But anyway.
Hey, Bobby, hang on a second.
Yeah.
Great patriotic equalizer. I honestly don't know how to give you, you got your hand raised. Go ahead and talk. I don't know how to actually,
Hey, just call me Mikey. I had a question for Sir Ludwig. You said you identify as a National Socialist. On what societies have you studied to bring yourself comfortably to a National Socialist? Was it the 1920s through 40s Germans? Was it Fidel Castro's Cuba? What brought you to your identifying as such?
Well, Cuba wasn't National Socialist. Cuba was communist, Marxist. So just because somebody uses the term socialist, it doesn't mean that it's all the same. There's different versions of social. You got capitalist socialism, which is what Europe is right now. Europe is socialistic and it's capitalistic. And then you got Marxist socialists, which is people referred to as communism. China, Russia, North Korea, Cuba, Vietnam. You could go down the list. And then there's really only one true National Socialistic form of governing, or that would be Germany of the 1930s and 40s. This was its own ideology. It was a revolutionary way forward in governing. It was a third way, if you will.
All right, guys. So I'd like to be able to kind of steer the debate between Sir Lugnuts and Bobby Pickletits. We're going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to lay out some ground rules real quick. Let's watch the rabbit punches, watch the kidney punches. In the case of a knockdown, go to the corner that I tell you to and stay there until I tell you to come out. I want everybody to be respectful of each other. We can disagree without being disagreeable. So let's get ready to debate stupid shit. Anyway, go ahead.
And just to speak to Robert, in some respects, we agree. I believe in separation of church and state. I would never outlaw any of the known major religions of today. Satanism, I'm not a big fan of. I wouldn't necessarily outlaw it, but I wouldn't have it being glamorized and promoted into society. So as far as religion, I believe in separation of church and state. But, this is what I advocate for. And when I'm talking politics or history and people try bringing religion into the discussion, I will ask them kindly not to. First off, I don't want to listen to somebody go on a diatribe preaching to me out of their book, whether it's Muslims, Christians, or others. So it's not that I'm against religion. But if we're talking history or politics, I don't want to, because you know how divisive discussion of religion can be. So I don't ever want to get muddled down into a religious discussion when we're discussing something else. And so I try to keep those separate. I've done broadcasts on religion and just talked religion. So it's not that I get triggered. And I don't even like having a religious discussion because I don't like having to point out uncomfortable truths about people's religions. I would hate to be cause of somebody's crisis of faith. I would never tell somebody's children, oh, you shouldn't believe in Jesus. If their parents, are Christians, I would never do that. And I don't want to be the cause of somebody having a crisis of faith. This is one of the reasons why I shy away from religious discussions. But like any discussion, if I'm going to have it, I'm going to be brutally honest from my perception. I don't pull punches. So, there's things that could be critiqued about anything. And I'd rather not be critiquing religions because, if somebody's religious and it makes them a better person, good on you. So that's kind of where I come from, where I try to stay away from religious discussion.
Can I respond to that?
Please do.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I love the fact that you brought this up because this is one of the reasons why I really wanted to speak to you today. You're comfortable talking about all these other topics of discussion, but the topic that you do not want to breach, which in my opinion is actually the most important topic, and actually has everything to do with all of those other things that you just talked about, for instance, politics. Let's just take the Catholic Church, for instance, and I'm not advocating the Catholic Church I do believe, and I don't think anybody who's a firm believer in anything, I do have to admit that I believe that Catholicism is a darn fine way to think about the realities of the world. But I'm more in line with the fact that there's a lot of religions out there, and that as long as you choose one, you're good. I think religions are language to God, and just like different languages that are based on different things, they're based on different, sounds, and different cultures adopt these different languages. It's the same thing with religions. So when you talk about politics in particular, And that excites me, right? Because I'm into politics. And I could mention something. Hey, Sir Ludwig, do you happen to know that the reason why we have Western civilization is because of Catholicism? Like, that's why it spread throughout the world. And this is apparent. All you have to do is just go, Los Angeles. It's the city of angels, Los Angeles, okay? Corpus Christi, Texas. That means the body of Christ in Latin. El Salvador. El Salvador means the Savior, okay? We were founded on Christianity. I mean, Western civilization was pushed forward and spread throughout the world. And now we have every different variation of Latin in all the different Romance languages. It's evident that the Latin peoples of Southern Europe spread out throughout the world. They procreated with the little indigenous Americans, and now we have Latin Americans and Central Americans and every flavor of Latin American Spanish-speaking variety.
Bobby, we've got a hand up here. Jambalaya would like to speak. I just to go
all
ahead.
Right. Okay. But I'm just saying all of those things, and just to let me finish my point. I just say all those things that Sir Ludwig likes talking about. If he shies away from the religious aspect of it, basically. There are no uninteresting topics. There are only uninterested people. And with that, I concede back my time.
Right. So, Jambalaya, what do you have to say there?
Well, first of all, you guys are hilarious. My first time in the space. I just want to say that, kind of staying on topic, that the reason why I think theism triggers is because, and this alludes to what the previous speaker said about not wanting to have to kind of do a takedown on various religions. I think the minute you live out your faith in a real, authentic way, you are taking down other religions. And the reason why I say that is anything that exists in a space that has a contradiction is going to be exposed, and it's going to be exposed based on what's true and what's not true. And we can throw our opinions kind of at the refrigerator like a magnet to see what sticks, but ultimately the only thing that's going to stick is what's true. And I'm not talking about subjective truth. There are things that are true no matter what. So when you have people that live in a space, okay, so let's take an example of, I live in a residential community, right? There are a lot of people that own their homes here. I raise my children differently than a lot of people. They homeschool. I homeschool, but a lot of them also send their kids to public school. Guess what? If my children go around their children, and we also are I don't call myself a Christian because I don't even really know what that means anymore. Like out of the 35,000 different denominations, which Christian? So I just say I'm a Bible believer and a Jesus follower. Much simpler for me. And because I raise my children that way, if they go around these children, guess what? The conversation is going to be really awkward for both parties, because my children are not going to take part in certain things. They're not going to watch certain things. They have a standard and principle and values, and they live them out. Those children are going to see my children as weird, not fun, whatever. So just living your life for the God of the Bible, okay, compared to, let's say, other religions is going to be odd, because I grew up in Buddhism. So I'm not speaking, like I was always raised as a believer of Christ. I wasn't. And I can tell you that those circles are a lot different in what they think about Christ. How they live their life in regards to that belief is going to look totally different. And their value system is different. There are things allowed, let's say in Islam, I hope I don't offend anybody, in regards to abortion. If you're married and you're in that relationship, and you have 5 or 6 children, the Quran allows you to actually abort that child at a certain stage. The biblical scriptures do not allow for that. So just wanted to kind of share that. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Jambalaya. That was really interesting, and I'm glad you're here in the space. So I think Sir Ludwig is up next. So let's get back to the debate here.
So yeah, I don't have a problem somebody bringing up, like, say we're talking history. I don't have a problem somebody bringing up the contributions, good, bad, and other, that Christians or Christianity or the church had to civilization. So I don't have an issue with that. When they start preaching out of the Bible, and they go on, and I'm not accusing you of this, Robert, but when they start preaching out of the Bible, and I call it banging the Bible, And that's different. That's different than saying, hey, the Crusades helped formulate Western civilization, participated, contributed. That's fine enough. Now, another reason why, like when I'm talking about a history and stuff, I try to stay away from the religion aspect of our history, because once again, I don't want to be in a position of attacking somebody's belief system. And so if we're going to talk about, and of course, the Christians or the church contributed to civilization, good and bad. And I do believe I can make the case quite well, more bad than good. I could just as well make the case of how the church has stifled innovation and enlightenment throughout their conquest of Europe. There was a time in Europe where if you had a Bible in your house, you were burnt at the stake. So that's fine, and that's why I try to keep religion out of the discussion, because I don't like bringing up these uncomfortable truths. I don't want to be the cause of somebody having a crisis of faith. But for many religious, and I'm not accusing you, Robert, I'm talking about collectively in general, many religious people, they only bring up the good and they overstate the good. And they don't ever want to talk about the negative or the harmful aspects of this on civilization. And that's why I try to stay away from it completely. Because if somebody's going to sit there and sugarcoat everything and just tell me how great and benevolent the church was, and how without the church there'd be no morality, or without the church there'd be no civilization, these things are not true. And I then at that point am put into the position of bringing up the uncomfortable truths about their history.
Can I chime in here for a second?
Well, I wanted to respond to that.
Oh, no worry. Go ahead. My bad. Go ahead.
You can, by all means, go ahead first.
No, I didn't mean to chime in. Go ahead. You say what you got to say, Robert.
It's quite all right. Please.
All right, well, I just look at America. I'm not trying to bring up politics or anything, but America was built by many different religions, not just Christianity or Judaism or Muslims, or it's just a melting pot of different religions. And to tell other people that live in this country and help build this country to believe in just your one religion just sounds, I don't know, it doesn't sound American to me. It's like telling a state, hey, every state has to do what I say, when every state should be their own state, right? Shouldn't every American be their own American?
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Can I talk now?
Definitely.
Okay. I know that I hope everybody heard me at the beginning of this, that I never advocated for just one particular religion ever. I just said that I think that this country was founded, just like the gentleman just said, Mr. Wright just said, he said this country was founded on the freedom of religion, and which is true and apparent. And when you look at the names of the states, like Maryland was Catholic land, You had all the different states had their own different religions. Pennsylvania were Dutch. What were they? I forgot what they were. You know what I'm talking about. All the different...
Pennsylvania Dutch.
Yeah, well, what did they practice? What kind of religion?
They were Quakers.
Quakers. Everybody had, all the different states had their own religions. And we've hit this point where, where these humanist people, they don't realize how all-encompassing the religion thing is, because let's say that everything is true. What we're saying is true. And I'm just taking Christianity, for instance. I'm not saying I'm not talking about all the other flavors. I'm just talking about Christianity, for instance. Okay. Let's say that it's true. The whole Jesus story is true and accurate. Jesus was God. He really did come here. He really did die and he was resurrected 3 days later. All of that stuff happened, okay? Wouldn't that be, if that was absolute truth and you discovered it for yourself in this, life of worldliness, wouldn't you be so interested to just talk about that and then explain how that one encompassing truth affects every facet of your life, not just these little things like Sir Luke would want to talk about, which I think it's just a triggering thing that people who are locked into this worldly way of thinking, you could be, there's two types of people to be. You could be a man of the word, and when I say man, I mean man and women. You could be a human being of the word. You can be a human being of the world. And when you have your little blindfolds on, and all you can see is the worldly stuff, you don't see that other worldly stuff, the other worldly stuff, And you can measure it however you want to through your naturalism or through your whatever your National Socialism, which is it's a man-made philosophy. It's a man-made philosophy, and if you want to know that what's lasting, it's if it's a God-made philosophy or a God-ordained philosophy, because it's going to last the test of time, which is what Christianity.
Okay, Bobby,
please stop. Which is what Christianity has done since the beginning of time. Okay, for 2,000 years at least. You might have your problems with the church because man has its hand in it too, but the fact that it has lasted as long as it has through all the different generations means something. And with that, I'll give.
Okay. So, Bobby, you mentioned Sir Ludwig, and so he gets to respond here. I know there are hands up, and we're going to get to everybody.
Thank you, sir.
But he made a direct reference to Sir Ludwig, so we're going to go ahead and give him an opportunity to speak.
Yep.
Yeah, as far as, the separation of church and state, it's a great point you bring up. Now, see, this wasn't to keep the state out of the church. It was to keep the church out of society, from running society, because Europe was so oppressed by the church, and so many of the conflicts and atrocities committed was at the hand of the religious people. The religious wars of Europe was horrific. In Germany, when Martin Luther went against the Vatican, some historians of the day, French historians specifically, he went to Germany to witness, to see what was going on. And he said that it was hard to find a tree that didn't have somebody hanging in it. Some estimates are up to 25% of the German population was decimated by this religious war and persecution. The Irish and the English, you go right across Europe. And it was pretty horrific. The 1600s, even the 1700s, even going into the 1800s of the religious persecution. So the Americans, they wanted church out of state. And they wanted the state out of the church, of course. But the church, it was never an issue of the state controlling the church ever since the church was ordained by the Roman Empire to be a state religion. The persecution prior to that, you can make the case. But since then, the church was never under the foot of governments. It was usually the other way around. The church would wield immense power throughout Europe on deciding who was king and who was not, who God ordained. So in America, it was actually the beginning, the 1800s is known as, some people would say, the Enlightenment period, but that was the first time when people could actually speak the truth or speak honestly about religion. Prior to that, you would be killed. So that you could actually equate to the America at the beginning of that, allowing free thought and free speech and free dialogue on religion. And the forefathers of America, they weren't even religious. They were deists, weren't they? They weren't really of the religious bent. They went to church, but they went to synagogue, they went to temple, they went to many different belief systems. They weren't beholden to the church per se. So I'm in agreement. That's what I promote: separation of church and state. I don't have a problem with there being a church and the church flourishing and people doing fellowship. I don't want a single penny of subsidies given to the church. And the church is rich enough, they shouldn't be asking for a single tax break or subsidy. They shouldn't be given privilege in a society that is mixed. Because then you start to get that influence, privilege, and being pushed in that direction. We've seen historically how horrific it is when religious zealots control the society. As I pointed out, in Europe, if you were found in the 1500s, I think it was, if you were found with a Bible in your house, you were called a heretic and burned at the stake. I do not want to see that happen again. So I got nothing against the church or religious people. I just don't want any religion, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, Hindu, Buddhist. I don't want any religion near the powers of or the levers of power. So that's, I guess I'll just stop there.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
So, hey, Bobby, hold on one second.
Can I respond to that?
No, wait 1 second. There's a gentleman with a Cyrillic alphabet sort of name. I don't know what it is, but you can speak now. You've had your hand up for quite a while. So.
Hi. Hello there. The name should there is an addition in Latin word, and in English it's a Twitter smartass without the profanity in original Serbian text. I was listening a bit. I am an ethnic Serb living in Serbia. We are Europe and not the European Union. I'm an Orthodox Christian by confession. I was following the reasoning Sir Ludwig had given. I believe it was an honest reasoning, but I dispute, I deny the facts that he is basing his reasoning. He is presenting what is accurate for Western Europe and the United States, and he might have a point to a certain extent. However, the history of the church and the history of Christianity is not related to the Western Europe exclusively. You called us Orthodox Christians Eastern Orthodox, while there are also religious and churches not separate from us, namely Copts in Egypt, Armenians, you know about them, and the Ethiopian church. They are actually, Armenians and Ethiopians are two oldest Christian nations by heart, converting completely somewhere in the first or second or third century. So there is no such violence and impositions and conflicts in the history of these churches. I also believe there is no such extent of violence in my church, which is the Orthodox Church, but I might be wrong, I might be partial in that. There is a specific reasoning given by one of the saints of the church. I believe all of you should at least know the concept of the saints of Christian church. And this is a speech given by a saint named Saint John the Golden Mouth. He was living somewhere around 5th century, and he was a fierce he might be a religious zealot. He was a bishop, I believe, perhaps of Constantinople, but not at that time. Constantinople was not a patriarchy, or maybe of some city around it. But there is a specific speech that he renounced violence against anyone not following his religious beliefs, and explicitly saying that his speeches was fiercely criticized non-believers, Judaists, or other Christian sects at that time, or various Christians' beliefs, let me phrase it better, but the explicit sermon, the explicit speech given and written down about a renunciation of violence or any kind of force in religious matter. So if to the extent Christians can accept that teaching, and I, as an Orthodox Christian, I do accept it, there is no blame in any other beliefs or wrongdoings that some Christians might have done in the past. That was my main point. I hope I managed to deliver the message clearly. Thank you for your time for listening me. I love you all, and I'm switching my microphone off.
Oh, thank you so much, man. I think that was really, really profound, and I think we all got something out of that. I definitely appreciate it. Bobby, I know you want to talk, but there were like three guys that have had their hands up so long that they must be dead by now. So I want to go ahead and go with Brian, who's been waiting for quite a long time. Then we'll go to Jambalaya and then Giancarlo. So Brian, what do you have to say?
Yeah, good evening. So, what's the topic tonight?
All right, never mind, Brian. We'll go to Jambalaya. No.
The what?
What do you have to say, Brian?
So, I mean, I'm a Trump supporter, right? But this country supports Israel. And I always wonder, well, if you're America first, why we have to support Israel? And there's this movement called Turning Point USA. How you heard of Turning Point USA?
Yes.
Yeah, you have to be fucking Jewish. You have to support the kikes. And if you don't support the Jews, well, they exclude you and they ban you and they cancel you. So I wonder.
Yeah, you know what? If you're going to use the word,
I'm guessing I'm in the wrong space.
You're getting way off topic too, dude.
Yeah, all right.
Like you're in a whole nother space. Read the debate.
We're not going to tolerate somebody using that term or any racial slurs or whatever. So anyway, Jambalaya, you're next. Jambalaya, you got your hand up. Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I was actually going to go ahead and let Robert respond before he got what his response was, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Bobby.
Jesus, I forgot what we were talking about.
I figured that was going to happen.
No. The gentleman from Serbia, I love the fact that he jumped on here and was sharing about being Orthodox. And I sometimes go to an Orthodox church myself, and there's even somebody in the space right now who I go with, not to blow up his spot, whatever. But there's a schism that happened through Christianity. Obviously, Christianity wasn't the foundation of Western civilization.
It looks like Robert got cut off there, but we're talking about like separation of church and state.
Hello?
There you are.
There you
Western
are.
civilization was definitely spread by Christianity, but it had its hand in Eastern civilization as well. Like, as you can see from the gentleman, where was Jesus born? Jesus was born in the Middle East, and then from there, it spread out, and it went west and went east. That was the middle. It went west and east, and so some people from the Latin tribe, the Latins, spread it all throughout the West, and the Greeks brought it east, and all these different. there's all these different topics, basically, is my point in all this. All these different topics of discussion have something to do with religion. So if somebody's bringing it up in a space, don't get triggered. Listen to it, because there's actually some deep understanding that you could probably take away. I've been basically going to daily mass for the last year. I started doing it May 25th of last year, and I'm coming up to a year of just being totally insane, going to mass every single day. And I learned a valuable lesson about Catholicism. Catholicism's awesome, number one, and you shouldn't demonize it. And you should be kissing the ass of Catholics, honestly, if you say the West is the best at all. Hold on. Sorry, hold on. Come on, man.
What makes you better than others?
Come on. Calm down, guys. Please let me finish my point.
Bobby was kidding.
Let me finish my point here.
At a certain point, he's making a joke. So let's.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying though, like, in the East, unless you're like an Eastern Orthodox Christian, in the East, usually you're praying in the lotus position, right? Isn't that what it's called? Lotus. Well, in the West, you kneel in the locust position. Okay? We just meditate. You got to meditate. When you pray, you don't need to be sitting here rambling off a bunch of things. You go and you are quiet. You shut your mind off and be quiet and be silent and know God. And just do the sign of the cross and then shut up. Don't say anything. And just meditate. A lot of times people, even Catholics in particular, out of all the different flavors of Christianity, they take it from all sides. They take it from everywhere, even within their own, Christian faith. Because there's only one thing that really should unite all of us Christians, and that's the fact that if we believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and he came down, God basically wanted to show everybody, because he had tried to tell people before. He sent people like prophets, right? And you could speak on behalf of God. And he was telling people over and over again, hey, if you don't do this, but nobody would get it. So he had to show them by coming down, putting on like a little human suit, and coming down and being like, hey, this is how you do it. This is what you have to do. You got to be kind to each other.
I think it's funny to describe Jesus as a human suit.
Yeah, you put the human suit. He put the human suit on. He came down as part human, part God.
I understand.
All right, and so if you
I have to say something real fast because I have to go. So I just want everybody to know I think this is a really, really decent conversation. You guys are all awesome, except for the shithead we had to kick out for being an anti-Semite. But in any event, I think you guys are doing a really nice job of having a respectful conversation with each other, and we need that more in this country. I unfortunately have to go because I have to go to church. So the atheist is going to church, and I gotta get out of here. But thank you for being awesome, and I hope to do this again. This is really fun, so let's do it again.
All right. The only thing is when I'm trying to talk and stuff, I'm printing too at the same time. So can somebody put their hand up who wants a co-host, I guess, who can like be a good moderator and like a for real moderator?
How do you put up your hand?
Hold on. Is that Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Come on.
Are you sure he's going to be a fair and impartial moderator, sir?
Yes, I have to be fair.
I sent it.
I'll moderate if you need me to. I mean,
well, he's this guy. He has the reins, and I think Sir Ludwig, right? I mean, should just have the ability to speak right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or let him do it.
Nope.
Well, Santos has been waiting for a minute. Why don't we get through his? Why don't we allow him to join the conversation like so many others have?
Mr. Wright, please take the helm, okay?
No, can you just pass it on to Sir Ludwig?
No,
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm from Facebook
just
world,
figure it
man.
out, dude. Please, you can do it. You can figure it out. Come on.
Santo, go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say this. I've been a Christian for a long time. And what I've realized is that Christianity is something that everybody claims to be an expert in, but in reality, very few understand it very deeply. Okay, that sounds terrible, but I believe that is true. Now, if we think that Christianity has been waiting around for some person's stamp of approval, that is stupid. Christianity's been around for 2,000 years or more. It has changed the lives of millions of people for the better, including myself. I love the Word of God. I love Jesus Christ, and I love God the Father. So if we think that we have been waiting for someone to straighten us out, that's a terrible thought. Now, I was listening to a space about a month ago, and I'm gonna be as brief as I can, but I think these things are important. I've been listening. I was listening to a space, and some young man got on there, and he said that he was destitute, walking the streets, didn't have money for food or anything. And he said he looked down on the ground, and he said it was kind of windy out. There was a $20 bill sticking to the ground. So he picked it up. He went and bought something to eat. He said he needed his driver's license. So he went to the Secretary of State, didn't have enough money. So he said he was praying to God and asking God to help him. He said some woman came up to him whom he did not know and told him this: God told me to give you this, and she gave him $500 in cash. Now, you and I wouldn't know that if he hadn't told us that. And so I'm going to make this statement, and I know this statement is true. God prompts people all over the world millions of times every day to help somebody who needs help, to guide somebody who needs guidance, to encourage somebody who needs encouragement, to give them food, clothing, a place to stay. We have missions all over this country. The Pacific Garden Mission in Chicago puts up 1,200 plus people every night. They feed them, they clothe them, they house them, and they give them the gospel. There's no government support for that organization. So God does a lot of good stuff every day all over the world. And for any one man to think that they can step back and give us a summation of Christianity, whether it is good or bad, is a fallacy. Okay? Now, one other thing. When you come to the Constitution and religion in general, it's this. I mean, read the Federalist Papers or read the Anti-Federalist, their books. They're quotable in court. What it is, the Constitution, every politician, every police officer, I was in the Navy, everybody that goes into the service swears allegiance to the Constitution. And the Constitution says this: when it comes to faith, the government needs to stay the heck out. The government has no seat in the church, and the government has no authority in the church. We have seen that shit all over recently in America when the government told the churches to shut down. The church, one of the churches, and I go to a couple different ones, one of the churches I go to, the minister said, the police called him and said, if you keep having church, we're going to fine you $1,000 a day, and we're going to chain that church down. Well, the thing is, we have seen that the government has come in the door of the church where it is not welcome and where it has no authority. Sadly, I wish more of the churches has stood up against it and said, hell no. But anyway, if we think that we're going to judge God or his faith, good luck with that. Thank you, Robert.
All right, who wants to be next? Just keep it cool. I don't know how to work this thing, so we got to self-govern ourselves. So I think we can do that.
We could definitely do it.
Philip, go right ahead.
Oh, thank you very much, Sir Ludwig. So, first of all, I actually agree with much of what Sir Ludwig has to say on this particular topic. I myself, as the previous gentleman that spoke before, am an Orthodox Christian, which is an Eastern Orthodox Christian, Eastern Church. As a policy, we in the Eastern Orthodox faith do not proselytize or evangelize our faith. We believe that, through our life, people will see, as it says in the Bible, through their fruits you will know them. And this is the way that Orthodox Christianity uses to spread the word, just through the life of people. Unfortunately, the Western Church has inflicted itself upon people forcibly through things like the Crusades. Now, the origins of the Crusade story, we know where they actually came from, which was the Knights Templar, which were people that unfortunately penetrated the church, caused the schism, but I don't want to get into that particular history right now. My position is that Eastern Christianity is how I understand the world. Through that prism, I understand the world, and it does help me and guide me throughout my life. However, I would never, go into a political space and have a discussion about world events and say, well, if only we could have an Orthodox Christian empire, everything would be fine and dandy, and it would change the world. No, I believe that my faith is for myself and for my family and for the way that I behave in the world, and it's my prism of understanding of the world. Again, what the gentleman said about the church is 100% correct. The Eastern Orthodox Church did not spread with the sword. The Eastern Orthodox Church spread with the truth and the Word of God. Unfortunately, the Catholic Church did decide to spread itself with the sword. As St. Paul says, as Jesus said, when Peter tried to take the ear off of the man that was going to grab Jesus to sacrifice him on the cross, he said, "He who lives by the sword shall die by the sword," and that is my position. Thank you very much for this great dialogue.
All right, I'd like to take the opportunity to address a few of the points brought up. Philip touched on it. Christianity was spread by force. This wasn't some benevolent thing where people had God enter their heart and they just went ahead and followed the good word. Millions of Europeans were slaughtered. They were labeled as heathens. They were demonized and dehumanized. Christianity came out of the Middle East from sensibilities that are not European. And this was enforced upon them, colonized like any other empire. If the Buddhists ran across Europe and co-opted all the kings and lords and said that they would validate their leadership to the people as long as Buddhism was implemented onto the people, it would be the same thing. Colonization by force. So once again, for when Christians talk about how benevolent and how good Christianity was for Europe, I could just as well make the case that Europe would have been further along of enlightenment and knowledge if it wasn't for the church hindering it for arguably close to 2,000 years, or let's say 1,000 years. The stifling of human innovation the church has done is an atrocity the church can never erase. They held back humanity for 1,000 years. And we've seen that the church and the state, whether a king, a monarch, a government, the church and the state have always worked hand in hand, as you see today. COVID and many other things. The promotion of transhumanism, the promotion of progressivism and liberalism. The church is lockstep with the globalists, just like the churches were lockstep with the kings, just like the church was lockstep with the Roman Empire. So there is a long history, and it's not a good one. I got a friend who's got a perfect saying. Christianity doesn't have a history; it has a criminal record. So with all that being said, I still I feel bad for Christians, because I come across all too often on social media Christians feeling the need to validate their own beliefs to non-believers on social media. They feel this need. It's almost like they gotta validate themselves, that they need other people, as Santos touched on. They feel they need other people to validate their belief system. And to me, that seems like a very insecure, inferior position to be in. And I feel bad for the Christians that they're in this state, that they feel the need to have to validate their belief system to non-believers. Go believe. Go be a good Christian. Go do fellowship with other Christians by all means. I encourage it. Hopefully you take the best of whatever your religion is. Any religion can be weaponized. So hopefully they take the best of it.
May I speak to that, please?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, the people that I feel bad for are atheists. I feel really bad for the people that are quote unquote naturalists, because the naturalist, you can't, science and being like a naturalist and nature, science and nature, let's say, those are not synonyms, right? You have science, which is you have the scientific method. It's a method. It's a way to measure nature, right? And then you have the supernatural, which would be God. And so they're totally separate. So if you're gonna use your tape measure there, just so you know, you can't measure God with your little tape measure, Sir Ludwig. So my whole thing is there's a lot of good that comes with religion. Religion's good, and that it's a psyop to believe that it's bad for some reason. There's a thing called a third space. Speaking of spaces, I know everybody likes their virtual space here, but church also offers what's called a third space. It offers a place for people to go and be with one another, be with a physical another person, pray together. And there's actually science behind it too. If you were going to sit here and you're going to, people have measured it. People have measured the science. Isn't that crazy? Behind a lot of this supernatural stuff. Let's say holy water, for instance, right? Holy water, for instance, you take water and you put it under a microscope, you can see that it has a fractal kind of geography or whatever, design, something like that, right? And then if you play certain music around it, it makes a different pattern. Well, that same thing, you could explain through the science about why holy water works. When a bunch of people, or let's say a priest prays over it and blesses it and says all these pretty words. If you really understood about words, Sir Ludwig, you wouldn't discount, discredit, and get triggered by any mention of religiosity. Because that's what you're doing. You're really just being triggered by this one thing. You're not able to keep going down. You keep on saying, let's talk about this, let's talk about that, let's talk about this. But if you talk about this, like, you can say your ideas, go ahead and say them. I can refute your ideas, and may the best idea win. But if you keep being closed off, and all of you guys, if you guys all get triggered by when somebody goes into a room and they say, hey, listen, Catholicism works for me, okay? You can go and you can meditate with people, and you can smell incense. You can pray in Latin if you want to. You learn so much when you learn Latin. You learn about all the basis of language, and our language is everything. If you want to take it on like some kind of spiritual hippie standpoint, we manifest our world by the words we use. God created the universe by speaking some words. Created the entire universe. Words, you take a word and then you put an S in front of it, you have sword. That's the way that you fight in this world, and putting on arbitrary like things like say, oh, okay, the guy got on, he's talking about being an Eastern Orthodox. That's fine, whatever. I don't care what anybody is. Actually, when we were rudely interrupted yesterday on another space that Sir Ludwig was a part.
All right, can we
wait, hold on.
All right, keep it cool though, please.
Hold on. No. When we were kicked off, I went back in it. I was kicked off. I went back in it, and I heard some other religions, some people of other faiths, saying they actually agreed with me, and that people of all. If whatever particular persuasion, religion you're a part of, you should read your holy book. You should congregate with other people who are like-minded. And I heard that and I was like, that's so sad. I could have made a friend right there. These people are triggered and scared that we're going to actually come to a good dialogue and find the similarities.
All right, well, let's keep it cool and let's send
everything's cool, man. I'm just saying, if you refuse to look at something, if you refuse to have the discussion, you are nothing better than a liberal triggered liberal. And I'll end on that. Because you have no idea about what the rabbit hole is that if you start talking about the Christianity or the Catholicism or whatever it is, like the life of the saints, for instance, so insane. There's so much history there. You're robbing yourself of good intellectual discussion because of your own preconceived notions. And I'll just yield back.
All right, I'd like to take this opportunity to respond. I've never been triggered at all in Twitter Spaces. Once again, and I hope to be very clear about this, I stay away from the religious topic because I don't want to be the cause of people having a crisis of faith. Now, see, Robert, nobody told you can't be Christian. Nobody told you can't believe what you want to believe. But as a Christian, you're forcing your beliefs onto others in a very arrogant manner.
I would argue that I'm not.
Well,
I'm not.
As I stated, you say that it's the universal truth, your belief system, and it's the only way. And we were having a discussion about something other than religion, and you felt the need to impose your religion into the discussion.
No, I was commenting on somebody else. Somebody else was saying that you do not have to go to church. And I wanted to clarify, because let me just, and I'm sorry for talking over you right now, Sir Ludwig, I respect you so much. Can I just say this right now? This should clear it up. Okay. You know how you guys, when you can make a coffee at your house, right? You can make a pot of coffee, or you can go to Starbucks and you can have a Starbucks coffee there at the coffee shop, right? Bring your laptop, right? Let's say you go for a jog in your neighborhood, or you work out with weights in your garage, or you decide to go to the gym or participate in a sport, right? See, there's differences with these things that you do, and to be triggered immediately and think that the person is disingenuous or has ulterior motives because they just particularly they have a certain way they look about the world, and when the near mention of what works for them, the near mention of what works for them triggers the person to immediately think that there's a negative reason behind it. Hold on, that there's a negative reason behind it. When all I'm talking about is you can pray in your prayer closet, okay? Or you can go to a church and you can go pray around everybody. And there's a beautiful thing with it. And I'm just trying to explain to people and share, because that's what you do when you find this thing called Jesus Christ. When you find that, you genuinely want to share it with other people, okay? But you don't want to do it in a crazy way and no kind of backsided way or anything like that. And you're trying to do it in their face, but you can have a discussion when it comes up, and because it affects all kinds of different things and topics throughout the universe. And to be so closed-minded and to be triggered immediately and to assume people's positions before they aren't even allowed to talk is what you hate. I'm basically Palestine and you're Israel in that discussion. I'll just end like that.
Can we let Santo talk?
Well, hold on a minute.
Okay, sorry.
I like to reclaim my time. So see, that's the point. Is the Christians feel the need to proselytize to non-believers and impose their perception onto them as the truth. Now, you brought up about prayer being like a force. This is true. We know this to be true. Meditating, trance, all these things are a force. It doesn't prove or mean that it's godly. Just like you spoke about with water, we know this to be true also. I could sit there and say, you're a beautiful glass of water. And then I could go to another glass and be like, I hate you. And we could freeze the crystals or freeze the water and look at the crystals, and you can see that these words have an effect on water. Now, neither one of those statements is religious or has anything to do with God. This is science. This is nature's law. This is universal truths on how the laws of physics operate. And you can equate it to a God if you like, but you don't have to. And it doesn't prove that there's a God. So this is where the religion. Your mic is open, Robert. So this is where religion takes ownership of nature and universal truths and try to make it something other, something godly. So once again, I know I can only speak for myself. I never get triggered. I don't know how much clearer I can make it. I try to stay away from the religious topic because I don't want to hurt other people's sensibilities. And I usually speak on history, philosophy, social ills, and the world at large. And religious people, Muslim, Christians, even Jews, will sit here and tell me the only way to fix this stuff is through their belief system, and their belief system had a direct hand in creating these problems. So me, as a non-believer in these Abrahamic religions, I lost faith in the ability of these entities to do well for humanity. Santos, go right ahead.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I have to agree with some of what Ludwig has said. I'm probably one of the greatest criticizers of Christians because we have done a pretty crappy job of representing the true faith. But understand this, there's nobody in here trying to force their religion on anybody else. And if you understand the scriptures, we are told the main thing that we're supposed to do is promote faith in Jesus Christ. It's called the Great Commission. And one of the things I've learned, I spent 9 years in college studying science, and I always hated history. But that is because most of history is written by liars. And so many things that we read in history is just not true. I mean, history will blame 9/11 on the Muslims, and that's a lie. And so there is much that has been blamed on Christianity that is a lie. I give these little gospel messages out on the street virtually every day. I have a street ministry. I tried to give a gospel message to an older gentleman, and he said to me, "Don't you know everybody born in the United States is a Christian?" Well, he's wrong, but he thinks he's a Christian. So there are many people, unfortunately, who don't understand what being a Christian is, that call themselves Christians, and who may be involved in doing something that's pretty shitty. And because they call themselves a Christian, Christians get blamed for it. What Philip said was absolutely true. Pure Christianity has never been spread by force. It's been spread by love, and it's been spread by the truth. And so, unfortunately, today we see Christianity in probably its lowest state. And if you understand the scriptures, you see that the early church was very powerful because it was very pure. But as we've gone through time, we've seen the church has been corrupted by deception. And listen to this. When we make them, if we call ourselves a Christian and we do something terrible, God will hold us responsible for it. In the Old Testament, David, okay, the king of Israel, committed adultery and he committed murder. Okay? And God said to him, he said, because you have caused the enemies of God to give them reason to criticize God, he said, the sword will never depart from your house. So if we are Christians and we do stuff that puts a blemish on Christianity, God doesn't give us a free pass on that. He doesn't take our Christianity from us, but he chastens us for us. So, and one last thing. Listen, if it wasn't for the fact that God was long-suffering, then people would not be able to shit on Christianity and speak very evil about it like certain people in this space are doing. But that's because God is long-suffering and very patient. But there's a time coming when each one of us will answer for everything that comes out of our mouth. And fortunately, I don't have to answer for what comes out of somebody else's mouth. I only have to answer for what comes out of mine. Christianity is a high calling. Unfortunately, there are many people who actually are Christians who fall short of that high calling. Thank you.
Well, I would just like to ask the Christians, prove to me there's a God without using your book.
Sir Ludwig, it's called faith, okay?
Hold on, let me talk to that. All right, so yeah, that's what I talked about before is you cannot measure the supernatural in this natural world. Science and nature are not synonyms. I said, nature is nature. We're a part of nature. What we can physically see, touch, smell, hear, right? Sir Ludwig thinks that there's no supernatural. There's absolutely no supernatural. Ghosts aren't real. Nobody can bilocate. Saints when they're locked into meditation, they don't float there or anything like that. None of that supernatural stuff is possible. Demons don't enter your body. The whole story is a Fugazi story. Okay, so he's on this thing where it's all nature. That's the only thing it is. That's the only way that you're gonna get him to believe that there's this thing called a real thing called Christianity. That basically I'm just trying to dumb down into layman's terms and get people to realize, because what I am is I'm a fisher of men. That's what we try to be in Christianity. We try to be humble. We try to be fishers of men. If you know your salt, if you know anything about Christianity, that's what it is, okay? And so in order to do so, I try to operate in these areas like purgatory areas, these gray areas where people are conversing about worldly topics, of course, but they don't really realize that the supernatural stuff, actually, the outer worldly stuff, that stuff affects the worldly stuff, but not vice versa. And they can't see it because they haven't reached a place in their own life through their own experiences. Maybe they haven't had enough trials and tribulations happen to them. But eventually, everybody, like they say, there's no atheists in a foxhole. And there's no, some of these people that are in here proclaiming that there is no God will be the fastest and the first to start praying on a crashing airplane. Okay? The fact of the matter is, even if there isn't any God or there isn't any Jesus story, and that's all a Fugazi, that if you live by this book and you do the things and you pray together and you say these prayers and you learn how to shut your brain off and you say the rosary, for instance, it's a meditation, and I could say it in Spanish now too. And if you figure out and you cut through all the noise, there are all the people talking about, but you can sit in your room and do the same thing and watch TV. No, you can't. You're a lazy you're a lazy spiritual person. You're really not what you say you are. You don't really understand it very deeply. You don't understand this. You have spiritual ignorance because you haven't gotten to that point in life. Life hasn't crushed you enough, as what Hemingway said, right? He said, the world crushes us all. And sometimes afterwards, people are stronger in those broken places. And sometimes those broken places need help mending. So you use like Neosporin. Well, Neosporin is religion. All right. And to just say, I don't need no Neosporin, I'll just let it heal on its own with the air. Okay, you could do that, I guess. Yeah, maybe it will leave a little scar or whatever. But if you don't want a scar, use the Neosporin. All right, I'll just stop right there for a sec. You guys could riff.
Rami?
Yeah, thank you, Ludwig. All I heard, I just came here 1 hour, maybe about 30 minutes. All I heard was pride and judgment from so-called Christians. It was, someone, I'm not going to name who, was so prideful, and we had to learn as students, This is the first thing about being a Christian, is not to have pride. This person was judgmental about everyone and how they are so great. The problem I have with any religious person that comes on spaces, if you are so confident in your religion, keep it to yourself. There is no need to bash people with the book. That's what I'm hearing. Judgments and pride. I have a friend, he's a very a strong believer of Christianity. And if you see him, honestly, you would want to listen to him. He never once comes and tells me, oh, you should do this, you should do that. No. If people want to hear the scripture, they will come to you. When it's calling, they will come to you. You don't go to people and bash them with the book. That's not what this is all about. When you go to a space about geopolitics or whatever, stick to the space. Don't go there to profess your newfound religion and bash the people with your pride, vanity, and judgments. Listen to them. Listen to what they have to say. And then if you want to add, and if it's relevant, and then you can quote and say, oh, this particular comment comes, you can do it that way. But you do not have any right to come and preach into other people where they don't want to listen. What are you doing? You're essentially alienating the message. You are actually upsetting people because people don't want to hear it. And it doesn't matter about whatever message you have. If you go to a message with love, it's going to be differently received. If you're going there to, impart judgment on them, people are not going to like it. And this is the problem I have on Twitter Spaces. This so-called newly found religious people that go there, all I hear is pride and judgment from them. Thank you, Sir Ludwig.
I'm not judging anybody, though. I'm not judging. I'm sharing something that works for me. And then I hear all this negativity coming back about what my reasoning is, and this negative, sinister reasons for saying it, which is insane. It's not even in the reality, and that's called triggered. That's called being triggered. That's an example right there.
Robert, have you heard anybody give you an ad hominem attack all this time? You have been going around doing ad hominem attack after attack. You are triggered. I know the truth. This is the problem.
I didn't say that.
You are not even a good Christian. You need to listen to yourself in your recording.
I didn't say that.
You're not even being a good Christian right now.
My main position, I never even brought up the book like you were talking about. Not at all. My main position is that the power of praying in groups of people in spaces just like this, a physical space, just like you're cool with this digital space, you're uncool with if you want to go to a physical space. I'm not allowed to go and pray in that way, according to you. I'm not allowed to have that option and talk about how it works.
Nobody.
That's what I'm saying. No, I'm not allowed to have that position. It's immediately you're immediately saying it's negative. No, you're immediately saying that my position is negative, dude. Immediately, and your assumptions are wrong.
Philip has his hand up.
Okay, so I think that there's an important distinction. Robert, if you had a prayer room and people were going into your prayer room and telling you, no, let's talk about Palestine, or let's talk about, politics, or let's talk about philosophy, then, you would have every right to say, hey, listen, this is a prayer room. This is specifically set up for, Christians to pray. But when you go into, say, like yesterday's room, it was a Palestinian, basically a space for Palestinians to kind of mourn the loss of their country. I'm Palestinian, right? And in Palestine, we don't talk about religion because we actually have respect for both faiths. We have respect for Islam. We have respect for Christianity. Unfortunately, it's Jewish people that are oppressing those two groups. But it was not a space to go in and start proselytizing Muslims. And when you went into that was actually an intrusive. Okay, so I do take issue with people going into a space that say about oranges and going in and say, okay, we're going to talk about bananas now. That's the point, man. Like, nobody is saying that you cannot practice your religion. You live in America. You could practice any religion you want to, anything, and I'm for it. I probably wouldn't want to have a space about certain other faiths, about demonism, for instance, or Satanism, because of to protect kids. But I'm all for you practicing your Catholicism within any space that you want, as long as that's the spirit of that space. I think the issue that I personally had with you going into a space and starting to talk about, oh, I see this is, I would never, I keep my religion to myself. And if Sir Ludwig wants to come to me and say, hey, Phil, I noticed that you went through this really terrible crisis in your life and you seem to get through it, really solidly, and I really admire your stoicism in that through that event. Then can you tell me a little bit about how you went through that? I would be happy to open up about that with him, but it would have to be somebody else seeking that about me. Through your fruits, they shall know by their fruits you shall know them. So that's that. I mean, literally, Christianity is not about enforcing. No, listen, you, Sir Ludwig. You need to become a Christian because you're a good guy, and I want you to become a Christian. And, I'm trying to save your soul, and don't go to. Listen, Santo's approach, which I actually respect. He tells the word of God. It's very much like the saints did. They went to ships, they went to shores, and if somebody said, I don't want to hear it, they left. As a matter of fact, Jesus commanded that. He said, when you guys go to somebody's house, if they say, I don't want to receive them, you walk away. You walk away. You do not enforce your belief system on them. So, I mean, I beg of you, Robert, read your scriptures, my brother. Read your scriptures, and you will know more about your faith. Because right now, I'm going to just tell you, as a Christian brother, you're not showing your Christianity when you do that. And that's all I have to say about this. I actually am at the gym right now, and I just wanted to stop in and chime in on that. Thanks a lot, guys, for the spirit space. I'll be listening to the recording later. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Real quick.
So good.
So try this, Christians. Pray to your God to enter the heart of non-believers and leave it up to God to decide. You ever think that maybe God don't want my Nazi ass? You ever think that your God doesn't want me? So pray to your God, ask him to come into my heart and show me the way, and leave it at that. Now, Robert, I will speak specifically to you. You came into my space. You tried to change the conversation to religion when we were talking about Palestine, and then you proceeded to insult me, calling me names, telling me I was stupid, telling me I was an idiot. And you just took a jab at somebody else that will remain nameless, saying that you find issue with them having a personal relationship with Jesus and God in their way. Clearly, God is speaking to them in this manner, and they find solace in this. And for you to sit there and judge this person and to make the assertion that they're not a true Christian or a good Christian for that matter, you keep saying you're not judgmental. I wonder if you hear the words that come out of your mouth sometimes, Robert. You really need to go back. And I got the recording up from yesterday. Go back and listen to the recording. You can see what the conversation was before you entered. You can see how you behaved while you were there. And then you can see how the conversation continued after you left. I don't go into Christian rooms spreading atheism or doubt. I don't go in there and be like, prove me your God, bring me your God. I don't bother people. If they have a fellowship, I encourage it. And I would always encourage, take the best of any religion. Whatever your religious beliefs are, take the best out of it. And if it makes you a better man, great. If it brings you comfort in life, great. But right now, Christians are flexing and they're telling the world that they can only fix the world through Christ. And the last thing I want is any religion near power. Because I got 2,000 years of history that has shown me that religion has done more harm than good to humanity. And the Christians bypass. The Christians don't even know half of the atrocities that there was done in their name. And when somebody like me brings up the crimes that were committed in their name, they get very defensive. They don't want to have that discussion. Once again, in closing, what's even more interesting, I actually did a space on Christianity, and only 2 Christians showed up for the discussion. But yet, when I do a space about feminism, I'll have 10 Christians in there telling me how God's going to fix feminism. So it's quite interesting. Whenever I've done religious spaces, the religious people stay away. And when I'm trying to do spaces on other things, they're all sitting there throwing their Bible around like it's a Frisbee. And then they turn around and say, I'm not being judgmental, but you're going to hell. So I don't have a problem with religion. I just don't want you people anywhere near power. You had your chance to show humanity that you would lead us in a proper, healthy manner. And the church has never been for the people. The church let the monarchs, the kings, the lords, the dictators, the fascists, the governments just destroy humanity and just to create complete misery for the people. And the church did nothing to stop it. The church did absolutely nothing to help the peasant class throughout history. Besides, give them a good word. Oh, don't worry. Your rewards will come in heaven. Just suffer for 80 years. Don't fight back against the king and the lords, and the dictators. That is not the godly way. Just accept your lot in life, and when you make it to heaven, you'll be just rewarded. So this is where I'm coming from. But Robert, for you to sit here and say that you never judge anybody, I don't think you listen to your own words, sir.
Okay, thank you again for being on my space. I really appreciate you, even though whatever we had our differences on how this happened. I really appreciate you coming on here and talking. I heard you use the word closing. So if it's okay, can I just talk about this for a second, what you just talked about? And then I want to just close as well. Is that cool? So
yeah, no, I'm good with that. We've gone almost 2 hours.
We've gone pretty good here. And listen, my whole thing is this. The reason why I use this resolve, why theism triggers, is because it's still my position that a lot of you guys are very worldly. And when I say that, it's coming off as arrogant, but it's more of my delivery being misunderstood than what it is. Because basically, guys, I'm not proselytizing when I'm saying a lot of the stuff I'm saying, okay? I'm mentioning certain Christian truths if it pertains to the conversation, not in a way to enforce my beliefs, just because I genuinely find it interesting. And for anyone to be triggered by that, they didn't understand the argument in the first place. Okay. I'm not an ordained priest. I'm not a prophet. I'm not a saint or anything like that. I'm just a scum. I'm a complete scum. I'm a sinner. I'm a person just like you guys. I just so happen to have found certain peace through meditation plus God. Meditation plus God equals peace. And I believe that there should be electives in school. I think that it shouldn't be just a Christianity is jammed down your face. I think that they should have electives with all different comparative religions, all right? I believe in freedom of religion, not from it. A lot of people get that misconstrued. They think that freedom of religion means the absence of religion. This is not true, and it's an easy intellectual flaw to make, a logical fallacy. But I've never come to you guys at all with this high and mighty approach where I know everything best. I don't. All I'm saying is there's this particular thing called Catholicism, which has been going on for 2,000 some odd years, and it works for some, and you can try it out if you want to, but nothing I say is for the negative reason. The gentleman on here said, the spirit of the space that we had yesterday, the spirit of the space, it's interesting that he uses the word spirit, and then they have a hashtag Israel, and then they're expecting somebody not to mention religion in a space that has Israel hashtag. I mean, that is pretty crazy. I mean, I know that Israel's a lot of different things. It's a government. It's a people, both religiously and genetically or whatever, right? But religion has a big thing to do with anything dealing with Israel and Palestine. So to immediately get triggered, because that's what it is, to be triggered and then always assume that somebody's coming at you when they mention religion of any way is pretty crazy. And I just want you guys to have self-awareness and realize that Christians are fishers of men. We're not preaching to the choir. I'm not preaching to the choir. I'm just in this space. And if you guys mention something, you're talking about something that has something to do, with what we're talking about, I have a prayer closet of my own. I pray. The gentleman said that I don't pray on my own. Sir Ludwig, I pray on my own. I pray. I have my own prayer closet. I say prayers regularly by myself. I wonder if you hear what I said. And I do not recall saying people are idiots because they do not believe, what I believe. It's the fact that you won't even go down that road with me, okay? You won't even let yourselves, because you always think Christians are attacking you, and we're not, okay? And so crimes have happened within the church, but you know what? I don't live in the past, I live in the now, and the church is very helpful. And if anybody wants to know more about it, you could check out my podcast, the FATENZO show every morning, and I talk about all kinds of stuff Catholic. It's a based Catholic liturgy show. And I try to show all the worldly stuff, how that connects with the book, kind of talk about the worldly stuff that you get you in the boat, and then I clobber you over the head like a dead baby seal with the word of God. And I'm sorry, but I have to use that tactic because we're fishermen, okay? And whatever, I make no apologies about it. But I don't do it in this weird way you guys are talking about. I do it in a good way, and I'm coming from a good place. And if you open your minds and open your hearts and open your ears and stop putting up little blocks all the time and thinking people are coming at you for negativity, then maybe you'd learn something. And with that, I close. And I'm just going to get off here because I got a lot of work to do. And I appreciate you guys.
Hey, thanks for keeping it healthy and everything.
Yep. Appreciate you guys. FATENZO show. Check me out on YouTube and Rumble.
Dude, you're the worst Christian.
Thanks.
Everybody. You're gonna get pulled out of the religion. You're terrible.
All right. Okay. Listen how he's acting. Is that
you are a terrible person.
The fruits. Look at
you want to keep this going? You want to talk about something different, or you got to end it?
I mean, they hear the hypocrisy is easily to spot. Anybody can see it.
Hate towards you. You're a terrible person. You're not a Christian. You're doing a disservice to Christianity.
Yeah, but let's treat this as like a piazza situation. Everybody's talking in the square. If you want to say something to somebody's face, don't say it on here. Let's keep it cool.
Exactly.
That's true. Don't be an armchair quarterback.
He's done a terrible job as a Christian. He's not even a Christian. He's gone there evangelizing, and he doesn't listen to his own voice. Nobody has told him
not doing that
believe in their religion
at all.
There's another person that wants to talk. Let them talk. Was that Alpha?
Oh yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so I just wanted to say something very quickly, right? So I just wanted to comment on what Sir Ludwig said and what Philip said earlier. So, a lot of people have expressed, their disdain for Christians evangelizing. And if you're not a Christian, you're an atheist, I can understand why you wouldn't be happy with that. But the whole, purpose of Christianity, as Santo mentioned, is about spreading the gospel, right? It's about actually preaching to others what you think is going to help them. That's the whole reason why we are evangelizing. Now, in the way that someone else has done it, talking on another space that wasn't to do with Christianity, I don't necessarily agree with that unless it links to the topic. But in terms of evangelizing in general, we do it from a place of love and from a place of actually caring about the person who we're speaking to. It's not because we think we're better than other people. It's actually because we love other people and we want them to understand Christianity and understand.
And Alpha, there's a time and place, when to spread the message. You need to learn about finesse, okay, Robert? You don't go around beating people in the head with, you just discovered some secret. There's a time and place for everything. And this is the problem, Robert. You don't know time and place. Don't go into spaces where clearly the title has nothing to do with religion and then going there. What do you think the reception will be?
No. Now I have to respond to this. I didn't do that. What I'm saying is, if you want to see my show, you immediately enter into a contract where, yes, I'm going to beat you over the head like a dead baby seal. But when I'm talking about these spaces, I didn't even. All I was doing was letting the lady know, Claudia, okay, who said that there's no need to do whatever. You could just have your own.
Robert,
I never. Quiet.
You don't need to bring names up.
Hold on. So, all I want to say is, the way we started this, I'm not attacking anybody personally. Okay, this person does a lot of online speaking and is in a lot of rooms, so I don't think that they really want to, remain completely and totally anonymous. I would think that, and whatever her name is and her emoji, I don't know, but whatever. If you put your name on here, I think that you could be mentioned, right? Whatever you show to the world, whatever your emoji is and your name, your pseudonym or whatever, that's all I'm using. And so what I'm saying is, whatever started this was just me wanting to just helpfully say and explain that you don't have to she said you don't have to read the Bible and you don't have to go to church. Okay, well, am I allowed to read the Bible and am I allowed to go to church? Am I allowed to? Because all I'm saying is, this is very helpful. These are very helpful ways. It's very helpful to read your holy book, whatever it might be. Whatever religion you might practice, it's probably helpful to read your holy book. And it's also probably practical and helpful if you're going to decide to practice any religion, to go to that particular church. I wasn't saying any other church was better than anybody else. Anytime I'm using myself just to build rapport with you and explain where my position is and my worldview is. It might be based in Catholicism, but I'm not saying that that's the number one thing. I've never said that number one this whole time. I said that we should have electives. Like, what are you talking about? I don't want the people that are all emotional to get on here anymore and try to ruin this space, because I'm not those cheap shots coming after the man and stuff and not being intellectually honest are not going to work. Okay? What the truth is you are triggered. You're emotionally a wreck whenever anybody brings up religion at all. You are a wreck. And you can't look at yourself, and you're calling other people horrible people, and you're passing judgments on them where there's a thing in Christianity. Don't try to help me with a splinter in my eye when you have a beam in yours, okay? Don't try to do that. If I want to just, in a conversation, I know you think there's no reason to read the Bible and there's no reason to go to church, but actually there's like a good reason to go to church and pray and meditate with people. And this is why, because I can go get a little espresso coffee and make it myself in my house, or I can go to the coffee shop. Okay. I could decide to work out on my own or I can go to the gym and I work out with everybody else. But immediately, if you're saying, hey, listen, I got both actually. I work out at my home and I work out at the gym, right? I have a prayer closet where I can pray on my own. And I also can go to church. And here's all the good reasons why we have church. And for people to freak out about that, that's what is disingenuous and intellectually dishonest. And you're not seeing through your own preconceived notions. And you think that Christians are always attacking you, and they're not. And it's just pretty sad. And so with that, I really am going to close because I'm not going to get into, I love to debate. It's fun. I'm an Aries. I love debating with people. But don't be all emotional when people mention Christianity, because what if it's true, by the way? You think it's not, but what if it is? You think you're so smart? What if it is true? And you're sitting here just easily discounting it. Like just totally discounting it 100%. Because you think whatever your worldview is correct, instead of just letting it ride on its own and have that conversation and bring in all the different Abrahamic faiths into the conversation. Have a conversation about, religiosity and how it relates to the world, because it had a profound effect on the world. Anybody who says any different is, I'm sorry, they're either ignorant or they're bought. So that means they have a reason to keep you dumb by saying dumb things and misguiding you. Because if you don't believe in anything, you'll believe anything. You'll fall for anything. And this is just something that you can believe in, all right? All I'm offering is this is something you can believe in. If you want to sit down and have the mashed potatoes and the gravy and the Salisbury steak and the salad too, and all the nutrients that comes with a religion, you can get into Catholicism. And you can learn how to meditate with others and how that profound effect that will rub off on your life. And then you might want to share it with other people because you'll be like, wow, this is awesome. And please don't take offense to people saying stuff like that, because they're not coming from a bad place and they're not saying this is the only way and this is the only, what only thing is this worldview or anything like that. They just can't help themselves when they're talking because it's genuine and you don't like it. So you get triggered.
Outstanding. Pow!
All right. We are back. That was interesting, right? I hope. Let me put Jesus back in the shotgun position. I hope that was thought-provoking and interesting at all. I was going off on a rant there. My apologies. I know I'm insufferable at times. But I do believe that you're not allowed to be addicted to God. People get triggered if you're addicted to God. You can be addicted to work. You can be addicted to drink. You can be addicted to weed. You can be addicted to sex. You can be addicted to ego. You can be addicted to every other conceivable worldly indulgence, but not God. If you believe in God and you make his slight mention in common conversation, people who really don't know him get triggered as F. That's all I want to say about that. So that was a really interesting little spaces I hosted. Check me out on Twitter, RV Piccirillo, Piccirillo, if you want to give me a follow. I know we were talking about Pascal's wager. Remember, Pascal's wager is so appropriate, especially in reference to what we were just talking about. The debate that we just showed. Where we left off was so there's only two things to stake: our reason and our happiness. Pascal considers that if there is equal risk or loss and gain, the coin toss, then human reason is powerless to address the question of whether God exists. That being the case, then human reason can only decide the question according to possible resulting happiness of the decision, weighing the gain and loss in believing that God exists, and likewise in believing that God does not exist. He points out that if a wager were between the equal chance of gaining 2 lifetimes of happiness and gaining nothing, then a person would be a fool to bet on the latter. The same would go if it were 3 lifetimes of happiness versus nothing. He then argues that it is simply unconscionable by comparison to betting against an eternal life of happiness for the possibility of gaining nothing. The wise decision is to wager that God exists, since if you gain all. If you lose nothing, meaning one can gain eternal life if God exists. But if not, one will be no worse off in death than if one had not believed. On the other hand, if you bet against God, win or lose, you either gain nothing or lose everything. You're either unavoidably annihilated, in which case nothing matters one way or the other, or miss the opportunity of eternal happiness. In note 194, speaking about those who live apathetically, betting against God, he sums up by remarking, "It is to the glory of religion to have for enemies men so unreasonable." And then the possibility, so analysis and decision theory. The possibilities defined by Pascal's wager can be thought of as a decision under uncertainty with the values of the following decision matrix. Okay, you see this matrix, God exists, God does not exist, those 2 columns, versus the belief and disbelief. There's infinite gain if God exists and you believe. God does not exist and you believe, finite loss. And if God exists and you disbelieve, it's infinite loss. And if God does not exist and you don't believe, it's finite gain. So given these values, the option of living as if God exists, B, dominates the option of living as if God does not exist, minus B, negative B. As long as one assumes a positive probability that God exists. In other words, the expected value gained by choosing B is greater than or equal to that of choosing negative B. In fact, according to decision theory, the only value that matters in the above matrix is the plus to affinity, infinitely positive. Any matrix of the following type, where F1, F2, and F3 are all negative or finite positive numbers, results in B as being the only rational decision. And that's what I think. I mean, that's why I made my decision to believe in God. It is rational. Here's the last thing I'll mention about Pascal's wager, misunderstanding of the wager. Pascal's intent was not to provide an argument to convince atheists to believe, but A, to show the fallacy of attempting to use logical arguments to prove or disprove God, and B, to persuade atheists to sinlessness as an aid to attain faith. It is this which will lessen the passions, which are your stumbling blocks. As Laurent Thurowen writes, note that the numbering of the items in the pences is not standardized. Thoreau-Keen's 418 is the article's 233, okay? The celebrity of fragment 418 has been established at the price of mutilation. By titling this text The Wager, readers have been fixated only on one part of Pascal's reasoning. It doesn't conclude that QED at the end of the mathematical part. The unbeliever who had provoked this long analysis to counter his previous objection, maybe I bet too much, is still not ready to join the apologist on the side of faith. He put forward 2 new objections, undermining the foundations of the wager, the impossibility to know, and the obligation of playing. So to be put on the beginning of Pascal's planned book, the wager was meant to show that logical reasoning cannot support faith or lack thereof. Now here's the excerpt. We have to accept reality, accept the reaction of the libertine. When he rejects arguments he is unable to counter, the conclusion is evident. If men believe or refuse to believe, it is not how some believers sometimes say and most unbelievers claim, because their own reason justifies the position they have adopted. Belief in God doesn't depend upon rational evidence, no matter which position. Pascal's intended book was precisely to find other ways to establish the value of faith, a justification for the Christian faith. All right. I hope that's not too long and unwinded, but I really wanted to detail that because, I'm doing it for myself, number one, because I'm learning along with you guys. But that is just a rational explanation for why you would want to just have faith. Because what's the point if you die? I mean, at least if you don't believe and you die, it's just way worse. It's way worse than just believing and acting as if. You might as well. And that's why I like to talk about, like I talked about on that debate. It's the same thing as what I really do concede that there are many roads to happiness. There are many roads to peace. That all these religions are just languages to God, and I've chosen Catholicism to try to learn fluently. And if you want to, learn a little bit more about this particular language, you can watch this show, and I'll do my best to explain it in layman's terms. That's really what I try to do. And by the way, look at this on Catholic Twitter. I got this yesterday. This kind of backs it up too about the existence of Christ. See this? It says from Symphonic White. They write, Christianity was so powerful that virtually every other religion had no other choice but to incorporate or acknowledge Jesus into their belief systems. So for Hindus, Christ is an acharya. For Muslims, Christ is a prophet. For Buddhists, Christ is bodhisattva. So Christianity forces other belief systems to acknowledge itself while refusing to acknowledge anything else internally. This makes Christianity unique, though it's also unique for a myriad of other reasons too. The belief system of Buddhism and Hinduism predate the birth of Christ. He has been retroactively adopted into those religions because his significance cannot be denied. So, you imagine that? I mean, I really think that you need some kind of belief system, but just given off of that face right there, just look at that. How many different belief systems have a reference of Jesus Christ in there? They've all adopted Jesus Christ into their storyline, their official storyline as well. And so I would just, if I were you, if you're a Western person, Catholicism is a great way to go. Don't be, this is my apologist thing right now. Don't be, be persuaded by the faith. It offers so many different paths to God. In itself, I mean, the Roman rite of Catholicism, you could either go Novus Ordo, which is very Protestant-esque in some ways. You can go with the traditional Latin route, if you'd like, to get back to that whole back in the day kind of vibe. Or, praying like our ancestors used to pray. Or you can even go the charismatic route, right? See some people, speak in tongues. Really, the only Latin that I like is, like I said, the only tongues that I like to pray in really is English, and then I also like to pray in my Latin. Let's do the Fulton Sheen of the day. Yeah, that's what we should do. Let's do that.
This is the wisdom of Fulton Sheen.
With the energy of Charlie Sheen.
That's how I roll. I have one speed. I have 1 gear. Dover Leach.
You can never be commanded, for example, to like pickles.
Heart.
You know how base we are.
Outstanding. I'm too smart. Too smart. I love pickles. My brain. That's epic.
Okay, so this is the wisdom of Fulton Sheen for June 19th. There are many who excuse themselves, saying that if they were in other circumstances, they would be much more patient. This is a grave mistake, for it assumes that virtue is a matter of geography and not of moral effort. And that goes right along with what we were talking about today. The proof is in the gooding. Okay? And that just reinforces it as well with those words from Bishop Fulton Sheen. All right, and I'm just going to read the meditation of the day, and then we'll be done. Meditation of the day is by Don Roberto. What? Don Roberto? That's my AKA. My AKA is Don Roberto. This one is Dome, like Dominic Roberto. E.R. Cam. He was a 17th century Calmondesi hermit at Monte Corona in Italy. This is from The Love of Mary, readings for the month of May, 1984, Tan Books. And it's entitled, She Who Always Gives to Those Who Ask. Mary is most ready and profuse in opening her treasures, dispensing her riches, her gifts, her graces, to him who calls upon her and has recourse to her in all his wants and necessities. How many humiliations, petitions, memorials, and intercessors, how many months and years are required to gain some favor, some help from men? And you may congratulate yourself if even this suffices, and you may not spurned without obtaining anything, as but too frequently happens. But not so with Mary. All have most prompt access to her, the noble, the rich, and the poor, the just and the sinner, the miserable, afflicted, the weak, the sick, the outcast, contemned, and infamous, the living and the dead. At all times, at every moment, she hears all, receives all, encourages all, grants all petitions, consoles all, and most abundantly distributes to all her graces, gifts, and benefits. A sigh, a glance, a word is sufficient, and she immediately comes to meet you, to offer herself to you, and to pour into your bosom all her treasures. You will find her ever ready to help you, says Richard of Saint Laurent. She has not the heart to keep you waiting, even a moment, burning with the desire to do good to all. She does not delay and cannot restrain the torrent of her kindness. Eager to do good, she knows not delay, nor is she miserly, keeper of graces. The mother of mercy knows not slow days. When she is going to pour forth the treasures of her beneficence upon her servants, says Novarinus, the holy evangelist St. John saw her fly to the desert with the wings of an eagle. She was given a huge pair of eagle's wings to fly away from the serpent into the desert. The flight of the eagle is most swift, and the symbol is well suited to the mother of beneficence, because she does not run, but flies, with a velocity surpassing that of the very seraphim, to the help and assistance of him who calls her in the desert of miseries. Amen, baby. Amen.
Outstanding. Pow!
Okay, let me just do the prayer of the day. Then we'll be done. Catholic prayer of the day.
FATENZO.com. It's time for the Catholic prayer of the day.
Very professional, Patty. Good job on the soundbite,
And
dude.
now for some completely fictional bullshit.
Stick to the credo, Patty. Stick to the credo.
Outstanding. Pow!
All right. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, dear Heavenly Father, thank you for life, thank you for love, thank you for listening, thank you for letting me podcast today. Really appreciate you. I pray for all of us swine out here in this world that we all can live according to the Spirit, and we can kill off our egos and just do the right thing. And in special attentions for the Lord here as prayer part, I'd like to pray for Eddie Block Films, that he keeps doing what he needs to do, and hope he gets into some more covering some Catholic stuff. That would be awesome. But I pray for Eddie Block Films. Lord, hear our prayer. We pray for Tucker Carlson, that he keeps doing what he needs to do. I think he's on episode 4 or 5 on Twitter, Tucker on Twitter. And just pray that he stays safe. Lord, hear our prayer. I also pray that RFK Jr. stays safe. If Trump's not controlled opposition, that he stays safe as well. Lord, hear our prayer. I pray for, who else is in the news? All the fathers out there. Oh, I got to say, I had to say Happy Father's Day today to the priest. That all of you guys, you fathers out there, that you maintain the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, within the family, and you could be like little priests in your own family. Lord, hear our prayer. And for everybody celebrating Juneteenth, we pray, Lord, hear our prayer. Lord, please hear these prayers for the souls of the sick who are in desperate need of a physician. May they accept your Son, Jesus Christ, in their hearts as a personal Savior who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen. And Omni Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. You guys can go in peace to love and serve the Lord and be outstanding to each other.
Pow!
All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. All right.
2, 3.
And also, I'd like to do this. I love doing the St. Michael prayer. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our defense against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, and do thou, O Prince of the heavenly hosts, by the power of God, thrust hell, Satan, and all his evil spirits, who prowl around the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. Spiritus Sancti. Amen. You guys, thank you very much. Enjoy yourselves on this Monday morning from back before Vaya con Dios.
FATENZO.com, 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 FATENZO.com. Outstanding. Pow!